Okay, I think we'll get started. I want to be very cognizant of everyone's time and certainly do thank you for being here. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Karen Smith, and I am the Executive Director for Leadership Macomb. And Leadership Macomb, for those of you that don't know, is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1996. And since then, we have had over 1,000 professionals from all different business sectors graduate from our 10-month experiential learning program. As a result of COVID-19 and subsequent restrictions on in-person gatherings, we were unable to have a class this year. But we wanted to stay true to our mission of educating and connecting leaders. So we developed a 10-part virtual series on relevant topics. And today's session is the second in our series. We're grateful that you are with us today, and we are so excited to learn from our two global speakers about the future work environment. I want to thank our series sponsors, Macomb Community College, Henry Ford Macomb Hospital, Marchand Advisory Group, DTE, Oakland University, Plant Moran, and of course, First State Bank. Amy Person is the Vice President of Marketing for First State Bank. She's a Leadership Macomb graduate, and she serves on our board of directors. We're honored that she took the lead in planning today's session, and she's going to be facilitating for us today. Thank you, Amy, for your support and for the support of First State Bank. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was a really nice welcome, and I'm so happy to do this. I'm thrilled to dive into this topic personally. I think it's going to be enlightening for most of us here. Obviously, if you had an interest, there's a reason you're attending, especially in response to COVID, because a lot of us are working much differently than we were prior to COVID. And so this topic is of interest, and I think it'll be a delight. Our speakers are covering an array of topics on how to think about the future of work. We're so grateful for the time the two of these folks have taken out of their super busy schedules so that they could share their insights with us. First, we will hear from Jack Van Tiem, Vice President and North Market Lead of Kelly Services, and he's going to kind of dive into the future of work. What does that look like? And he's got some pillars that he'll share with us. Then we will hear from Macomb County native Dawn McLaren, Senior Global HR Partner at Atlassian. She'll dive into what open work looks like and some interactive engagement strategies to go back and share with your team. I'm going to do a little housekeeping here and let you all know that after they've each completed their discussions, we will have time for a brief Q&A. That means you get an opportunity after the discussion to kind of share some questions that you have with these experts in their fields. What I would encourage is that you submit your questions in the chat throughout the session. So the Leadership Macomb team will be logging those questions, and then after both speakers have completed their discussions, those Q&As will be presented by the Leadership Macomb staff. So feel free to submit them throughout their talks today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jack Van Tiem of Kelly Services. Jack has nearly 3 decades of experience in human capital services industry. He joined Kelly in 2016 and previously served as Vice President and Market Leader for Midwest region. Prior to arriving at Kelly, Jack was the Vice President at a regional talent acquisition company where he led recruitment efforts and managed strategy and operations for technical staffing, executive search, managed service provider contracts, and talent acquisition consulting. A fair and trustworthy leader, Jack is always looking for what's next in the evolving world of work and helps clients ditch the script on old ways of thinking to embrace the value of all work styles. Jack serves on the board of directors for local Automation Alley, as well as an advisory committee member for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. He holds a bachelor's in economics from U of M and is certified in Six Sigma process improvement. With his wonderful background, we look forward to hearing from you, Jack, and I'll have you take it away. Here you go.
Well, thank you very much, Amy. I'd like to thank the whole Leadership Macomb group for inviting Kelly today. Amy, I think you got this kicked off when you saw one of my coworkers do this talk. Hopefully I won't disappoint you. John is an incredibly tough act to follow, but thank you nonetheless for inviting Kelly to this session. I'd also like to thank Karen Smith and Julie for their assistance in getting this together today. So hopefully the screen share is going to go as easily as it did during the rehearsal. So here we go. So
It looks
hopefully we can-
perfect. Yep. looks
Okay,
perfect.
great. I needed a little bit of help there, Amy. So thank you very much.
No problem.
As Amy alluded, I'm going to be talking about the importance of one of the aspects as it relates to the future of work, human agility in our new normal. So here we go. There we go. So as we know, the important thing that we need to realize right from the get-go is that we need to engage talent in their space. So we can't make them come to us anymore. And we also know never more prevalent than it has been in the last 9 months that our world of work is everywhere. As you know, prior to the pandemic, a lot of us might have worked 1 day at home, 2 days at home. It went from 1 to 2 days to 5 days. It went from, the time you got up in the morning till the time you went to bed at night, maybe a little bit on Saturday morning, maybe a little bit on Sunday night. It took us a while to figure out how to confine our work to a workspace in our house and allow the rest of our house to be where we enjoyed time with our families. So that took a while for us to get used to. As we look at things at Kelly, we look at the future of work across 4 dimensions. The first one being workforce. We've been asked questions by our clients like, how do we better prepare to leverage the workforce of tomorrow? So that sets us off to look at supply and demand patterns, consumer behaviors, and the role of agile teams in the world of work in the future. We also have to look at workplace. I know Dawn's going to talk quite a bit about this, but we get asked questions like what changes within the workplace will be the most significant? We already know it's remote work. We know it's safety. We know it's resilience, but it's also open innovation. And most of us have done innovating out of necessity in the last 9 months. Technology has played a big part in our life up to the pandemic and an even bigger part in the pandemic and will continue to play a part in the future. So we get asked questions like which technologies and which advances of those technologies will have the greatest impact. So obviously it's collaboration tools, it's robotic process automation, it's machine language, it's artificial intelligence. Also, very importantly, it's people analytics now because we can't see people as easily as we could see them in the past. And last, but certainly not least, are social norms, and probably the most important one that we have here. We get asked questions like, where do behavior and policy misalignment indicate a need for reform? So we look at labor laws, we look at diversity, equity, inclusion, equity at work, which is an initiative that we have at Kelly that I'm going to talk a little bit about at the very end. And then the passion economy. People are looking for work that fills their passion, not just their purpose. And increasingly, it's more passion than purpose at all. So if you've taken a psychology class, you've seen Maslow's hierarchy. It starts off with survival, right? Physiological needs that we have. Then it gets into safety. And then once we feel safe and we're nourished, we can start looking at love and belonging to something and have a sense of connection. Once we have that, we can move up the pyramid into esteem, which we all know is extremely important, that kids grow up with a good view of themselves so that they can view the world properly. And then it ultimately goes into self-actualization. However, as we all know in life, that the journey doesn't stop. There is an ebb and flow between sustainability and human agility. We're constantly getting bombarded with things happening in the external world that cause negative momentum, hopefully not too much, but also positive momentum. So we move up and down on this pyramid. And with that, we gain agility. So as we looked at human agility trends, we bucketed them into these 6 topics. The first one being human, second one, connection and collaboration. Number 3, purpose and meaning. Number 4, sustainability versus sustained agility. Number 5, execution and experience. And then number 6, rethinking the service economy. So we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about all 6 of these insights. So being human. So in a world of technological growth, it's our humanness that will make us stand out and stand strong. So what's that all about? So often talking about the future means talking about technology, but we tend to forget that we're human. And when we forget that we're human, we do it at our peril. Why is this an issue? Well, we live and we work, and we live and work in a world being continuously changed by technology. While this often creates convenience for us, it also brings complication, and it's never black and white. What we do with the technology can help us become the best version of ourselves as individuals, employers, citizens, and societies. So why is this so relevant now? This is going to be a recurring theme. Why is this so relevant now? It's the global crisis, and it's highlighting the power of technological advances, but also the vulnerability we have as human beings. So as we look to address this in our companies, there are a few talking points that you should practice and get a big circle of people talking about. And one of them is that technology has a social context to it. So there is no rise of machines. Machines are not the enemy. There's only gradual human adoption and acceptance. So we have to remember that technology devices are made by humans for humans. This means that they meet our unmet needs, right? That's the reason we're building them. But a worst case scenario is they reflect the inequalities and biases of our imperfect world. We also need to talk about what is the humanness that we want to set free. So which elements of work are best done by humans, which are best done by machines, and whether or not data can help us make those decisions. As we're talking about machines and the interaction with us as humans, we need to admit that we're all emotional. Understanding our emotional responses are critical, especially in future workplaces, as well as our wider lives. How will employees learn to decipher, respond to, and anticipate the emotional responses of talent is critical as well. So we're starting to see a little shift in what we're talking about in the future of work. It's plussed up. We've been talking about it for 10 years, but it's really plussed up in the last 9 months as the talent lens needs to be used to view the interactions with our employees. And then we also need to talk about our technology's opportunities equal. So if both employers and talent will need a facility and fluency in technology in order to succeed, does everyone have equal access? The second human agility topic is connection and collaboration. Embedding collaborative processes into the workplace speaks to the highly social nature of humanity. So what's that all about? It's how we work together, and how we work together will change in the face of new demands and new constraints. We always need to remember that when we get new demands, we're going to get new restraints, or existing restraints are going to be tweaked a little bit. So it always comes with something that we need to react to. What's the issue with this? It's much of how and indeed why we work has been social since the dawning of the information age. It's accepted wisdom that the collaboration that we do with others drives innovation, and that the positive power of teamwork drives meaning and satisfaction amongst all team members. And again, why is this so relevant? The global and local crisis that we face has forced new forms of and context for collaboration and acceleration and the adoption of technologies that enable online connection and virtual interaction. So what should we be talking about inside of our companies to emphasize connection and collaboration? So the first one and the most important one is tomorrow's work social at heart? Should making better social connections be at the heart of all new workplace technologies and processes? And how might we measure the ways that better communications in the workplace translate into better companies, better products, and better services? We need to come to grips with that online life is real life now. We've been trying to not make that admission for a very long time, but making work make sense to a generation raised on online interaction, multiplayer gaming, virtual environments, etc., will mean employers have to embrace new mediums. How can business take the best of social sharing and adapt it to create a truly modern workplace? I will ask you a question to consider. In your companies, does your CEO see the same content on the intranet as your frontline worker? I think we all have the same answer to that. What we need to understand is how much data we have about all of our employees and the ability to get more data on our employees to make those interactions very customizable and give them content that is germane to them. What's important and interesting to your CEO is not important and interesting maybe to your frontline workers and vice versa. Understanding transparency and how we need to trade on transparency and that will be expected is an important topic to talk about in our companies. So as we move from radical transparency to radical collaboration, customers and talent will expect an insider's view on product and service innovation. It's just a fact. That's our next stop. So purpose and meaning, creating momentum means harnessing our human desire for meaningful work. So what does this mean? It means that the search for meaning and the desire to express purpose becomes a real issue for employers. So our employees are driving this. People are looking for demonstrations of employer value and values, a sense that the entities we work for and buy from are engaged in meaningful activity and exist beyond the simply transactional. If you're a brand, it's essential to explain and surface purpose in the hope of engaging consumers and customers and attracting and retaining staff. It's really true for all of us. So we're talking about philanthropy, activism, and humanity of businesses and employers being in the spotlight like never before. So how do I talk about that in my company? How do you talk about that inside your company? So the pivot here is that purpose is a workplace issue. These are times of turbulence and change that we're going through, but also times of opportunity to explore new ways of working and living. There's more focus than ever on finding meaning and purpose in how we live, but particularly in where we work and what we do. This is mind-blowing for our older generations that are still pulling a lot of the strings and hold the purse strings in a lot of our companies. So there's a new currency out there and it's called care. We know modern life is stressful, it's chaotic, and it's hard. There are very few people who aren't looking for stress-busting strategies in daily life. Just know that. They're looking for stress-busting strategies, and if you as a company are providing additional stress into that person's life because of something systemic that you could change, your employees are looking to go somewhere else. So this comes down to, are you prepared to take a moonshot? Are you prepared to be increasingly aware of social and ethical issues? The issues that consumers are demanding that companies use their power for positive change. I will tell you that the CEO of Kelly came out very strongly after the death of George Floyd, that talked about his abject abhorrence to what happened to that man, to the systemic unequal justice in our system in the United States. To me, it was an unbelievable position for a CEO to take of a publicly traded company, because I hadn't experienced that before. It's usually saved for others to do, and CEOs don't dip their toes in that water. And that's not the first time he did it. He did it with us as internal employees. He sent a message out to our 500,000 temporary employees. He talked to his senior leadership team about it. He talked to our board about it. He talked to Wall Street about it. So are you as a company prepared to take a moonshot like that? Sustainability and sustainability. So what's this about? It's what happens to the necessary drive for more sustainable ways of doing business in a time of crisis.
You talking to me? What'd you say?
Whether it's
Just
low
for a
impact.
picture. I needed a red sweater.
I love our new world. So whether this is low impact living, responsible resource use, eco-friendly ways of doing things, eco-ethical supply chains, or a quest to create more environmentally friendly working practices, are things that go with human agility trait number 4. So what does this mean? Resilience is the new normal for us. The employer has a role in filling the trust gap. This is truly amazing to me. Not too long ago, there was a survey done where 63% of the respondents to the survey said they trusted the information they got about COVID-19 from their employer. 58% of the people trusted what they read on a government website. So if you don't think you play a huge role in providing your employees information, there's some data that suggests that's just not true. And not only should you do it to be a good steward to your employees, it's just your responsibility, your moral responsibility, your ethical responsibility. Also around this is, don't just talk about it, do it. I gave you the example of our CEO. So show people, don't just talk about it. The disruptive and systemic change needed to create a more circular economy and a more sustainable society won't scale without effort. It's going to take people making brave decisions to make this happen. Education and experience. So the self-optimization and skills development as it becomes a lifelong commitment. There's a twist in this that people have to get and have to get it right. So what is this about? It's about the new ways of gaining and using skills and how that will reframe how we think about the ways we learn, when we learn, and where learning happens. I mean, this is a sea change deal. So what's the issue here? An education revolution is underway. We all know that. Rapid tech advancements are pushing it. Socioeconomic shifts and attitudinal changes are highlighting how traditional education is no longer delivering the necessary skills. We all know this for an evolving future jobs market. We also know, but we have to know at our core, that soft skills training, real world problem solving, and multidisciplinary upskilling have to become the new learning imperatives for future success. Tomorrow's employee will be a longtime learner and they will be a longtime learner that is seeking constant growth. So you're not going to be able to hire Johnny and put him in a chair, teach him what he needs to know for that job, and then not worry about him. You're going to have to train him. You're going to have to move him up. You're going to have to move him over. You're going to have to be intentional about your employee growth, because an employee as a consumer has that expectation. Today's teens are devoting more time to educational activities and less to leisure. They're doing more homework. There's studies that show it's doubled in the last 30 years. Tomorrow's retirees will seek a constant exploration of new skills as experiences. So it's all about long-time learners, long-term learners, but the takeaway here that's different is that they will be seeking constant growth inside of your organization as well, and they have that expectation as a consumer. So rethinking the service economy, human agility number 6. Service design and development becomes crucial in ensuring we connect customers, consumers, and teams in human ways. So what's this one all about? It's a service-led and service-first economy, and then demands a new focus on intangibles. So for companies, optimizing, improving, and streamlining service, that's the key to delivering customer success. So why is this important? Oftentimes, the best intentions are blocked by systems not agile enough to respond to human needs and leverage people's instincts to create better human connections through service. Think about your own organizations in that context, about how embedded systems and processes are and how it's incredibly difficult to change. So we clearly have to be much more agile. This ranges from last mile logistics to remote working tools. The new needs are sparking innovation in service design and delivery like never ever before. So how do you talk about this in your organization? You know, the chatbot economy will change how we talk. So as employers, we're going to need to explore how best to help teams move towards natural conversational interactions with artificially intelligent services. Think about that. We have to interact, right? There's that human-machine interface that's so critically important. Home-based workers are going to need different things. We've seen that in the last 9 months, but we may have just thought this would be temporary. Well, it's not going to be temporary. The remote teams will see employers need to replicate key elements of company culture through services that are accessed at home. All ability workplace tools. So as they build out the future of digital and physical interaction workplace, the workplace and tool designers in every industry must keep accessibility front and center. If these interfaces are designed to rely on one sense only, it will exclude many other people. Driving diversity from within is so critically important now more than ever. A diverse workforce, so this is proven through data over and over and over again. A diverse workforce will generate diverse service solutions to future business challenges in a much shorter amount of time. There's a very brave company out there, Unilever, that's recognized this opportunity and has resolved to have 5% of its workforce made up of employees with disabilities by 2025. Usually when we hear these kind of declarations, they're 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out. I mean, we can see 2025 from here. And what a better world it will be when that happens. So that's the end of the 6 human agility insights that we have at Kelly that I wanted to share with you. You see all my contact information is there. I'd be happy to have a conversation or answer a question with you offline if we don't get to it today. But I would ask you to check out, if you Google Equity at Work and Kelly, that'll take you to this page where we're looking for like-minded employers to take this pledge with us, to do things like remove barriers of credentialing, or unnecessary credentialing, to remove barriers that are, outmoded employment practices that unnecessarily exclude people. We have a special focus on neurodiverse folks, LGBTQ folks. We're also working to not exclude people who have minor offenses with the police that have records that automatically just get knocked out because of what they have. And we're not just doing it or talking about it. I myself am part of 3 Equity at Work projects right now. I'm doing one with a drug court here in Troy, Michigan. I'm working with Oakmac SHRM, which I'm sure you guys are aware of that organization. We're going to be doing some foundational work with them in 2021 around this. And then we're doing a pilot with Oakland Community College. It's got a tangent to Future for Frontliners with it. Something that we hope to be able to take to Macomb Community College when we're done and we do the proof of concept. So, please just inform yourself about what Kelly's commitment is to equity at work. And I think it may help you spark a conversation inside your organization. And if you want to talk to us about that and how you can participate and stand up and be heard and get ready to take your own moonshot about that, we'd be happy to do that as well. So I'd like to thank Leadership Macomb again, Amy for the invitation for Kelly. And I'm going to kick it back to Amy.
Thanks, Jack. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. And Jack will be available for Q&A later after our second presenter has finished up with her discussion. Jack, thanks. I got a couple really great key takeaways, especially in the space of being able to consider your employees as consumers of your brand. I think that was a really great takeaway for me. And I hope other people felt that way, because as we become more distant, especially through COVID, it's important that we keep that culture alive, which kind of segues me into our next presenter. Our next presenter is Dawn McLaren of Atlassian. If Atlassian's brand is not that familiar to you, they're the makers of Trello. I don't know if anyone else out there has done a Trello board. I have. It's super fun, but also a really organized tool. They also are the makers of Confluence, which you may be using at some of your shops or have heard of. Anyway, Dawn is the senior global HR partner at Atlassian. She's aligned with the Go-to-Market organization, a globally diverse team of 1,500 plus employees spanning San Francisco, Austin, Boston to New York, the Netherlands, Australia, Japan, Philippines, and India. She helps bring business priorities and the people team strategies together. Atlassian is committed to unlocking the potential of all teams through technology, practices, and open work, and is evolving towards an even more remote work experience with a mission of Team Anywhere for all Atlassians. So that's kind of huge in lieu of COVID, and I think you'll all find it interesting. A little bit about Dawn. She earned her Master's of Organizational Development from the University of San Francisco and her undergrad of Human Resource Development from Oakland University. I think there's a couple grads in the audience as well. Prior to Atlassian, Dawn spent almost 5 years at Spec Products, a subsidiary of Samsonite, as Spec's HR director, running a small but mighty HR team. She has a passion for building engaged teams and creating an environment of trust and collaboration. More than anything, she recognizes the need to bring humor, playfulness, and humility to the workplace. Her personal philosophy is we spend way too much time at work not to enjoy ourselves. And I would have to agree, and I'm sure all of you do as well. So now, without further ado, I hand it over to you, Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. And it's awesome to be here. It's great to see all of you, even though most of you don't have your video on. I know you're all here. So thank you again for the time. Hello. Thanks for turning your video on. Love to see you guys. I would encourage throughout, if there's questions, please do engage in the chat. We're going to be keeping track of those through the end. And then there's a few times where I'll ask you to engage in chat directly, just based on the conversation. All right, I'm going to jump right in because I know we have a short amount of time. Thank you. If I can get my screen to advance. Here we go. So at Atlassian, our mission is to truly, we believe that we want to, behind every great human achievement, there's a team. Our mission is to unleash the potential of every team. We do take this very seriously. This ties not just to the work that we do and our amazing products and services, but it really does truly start within. And that's something that we believe within our own culture. We believe that it's important, regardless of industry, that we focus on the team. We also believe that you can really get great things to happen and ideas come to life through technology. And also by really embracing an open mindset. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we proceed. All right, so all of us have worked across many companies, industries. Some I'm sure we've loved, some I'm sure we've had some challenges with. Myself, I've encountered a few. And I would encourage us to think, when you think about a closed environment or a closed company, these are things that maybe companies aren't even knowingly creating, but just starts to become part of our practices and our culture. And when you think about closed, I have an example of my own, a personal experience. There was an organization that I worked with for a number of years, really near and dear, in a great company. However, when people left the organization, we did have some unique practices. We kind of kept it quiet and really wanted to navigate the message before we would share with the broader team that someone was leaving. And so for myself, that was a bit challenging. I gave almost 2 months notice because I felt it was really important for them to be able to get a jump start on replacing the role, as well as transitioning knowledge and helping the team to be aware of what's coming and the changes. While I gave that much notice, it was really only a couple weeks before I left and before I had to say goodbye that the broader team became aware of this. And what does that mean for the team? It meant there was uncertainty. It felt like we were hiding things. There was less time for me to focus on knowledge transfer. So all together, in my opinion, there was a lot of loss there and being more closed in terms of wanting to share that news. So I'd love for you guys to think about examples in your past experiences where you may have come across or encountered a closed environment. I'm curious if you could share just in the chat some words that come to mind when you think about closed environments. What are things that come to mind for you? If you could share those in the chat.
And I'll just mention, if we can share them with everyone, I think it'll be insightful. So share a couple words and let's make this interactive.
And I apologize. I'm not able to, for some reason, I'm not seeing the chat. Ah, here it is. Okay. Okay, so hiding, deception, we see shame, humiliation. Absolutely. What are some of the impacts you think when you're thinking about a closed environment? Lack of access to resources. Elena, that's a good one. Fear can be created. Yes, not feeling comfortable asking questions. Oh, lack of communication. Good one. Lack of being aware of what the goals are that we're all aligning towards, and lack of trust. I appreciate you all being vulnerable and sharing some of your insights there. And you hit many of them. So when you think about closed environments, oh, I like this. Closed environment feels like there isn't integrity in the leadership. Trisha, thank you for sharing that. So when we think about this, what can happen? What are some of the unintended consequences of closed environments? We have hoarding of information, like we've discussed here, knowledge loss, inflexible processes, distrust, also thinking about being out of the loop and social exclusion. And when you think about much of just what Jack had to share here, thinking about that sense of belonging and how important and critical that is to just, our own human growth, having a closed environment can really separate us, right, from that feeling of belonging. And so, of course, these are things that we're not looking to, as leaders here, we're not looking to create those types of environments, but they do happen. And so let's think about how we can shift away from that. So I'd like you to think about open, and this is another opportunity for you guys to just throw out any idea. When you think about working openly, what does that mean to you? If you could use the chat and just share kind of what resonates. Collaboration, awesome. Any other things that come to mind? Okay, trust. Oh, fun. I love that, Trisha. Thank you. Open to new ideas. Yeah, when you think about new ideas, that helps to create innovation. Communication, trust, again. Oh, dialogue, synergy, Elena, thank you. Absolutely. So I think you guys have hit on a number of them. So when you think about an open environment, what we're really trying to look at is you no longer have knowledge loss. Decisions aren't made in a vacuum. Teams have high levels of trust and transparency, and ultimately the potential to lead better outcomes. And so when we're thinking about this open environment, we want to be grounded in inclusion, in trust, recognizing ideas can come from anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in the front line or you're at the C-suite. We want to hear from you. The knowledge base is so critical and important. You no longer have to worry in an open environment that you're losing this really great minds and information that has been collaborated throughout the years, and being able to share really open ideas. I love this. Feeling welcome and a part of a team. No ideas are bad ideas. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so let's dive in a little bit deeper into open work. So when we think about open work, we think about it in 4 distinct ways here at Atlassian, which I'll jump into momentarily. But first, I want to share an example that's quite relevant to what we're facing today. And I'll tell you, so I have thought I've worked in open environments, and I will tell you from my experience at Atlassian, I've never worked at a more open environment. And working in HR, we're accustomed to keeping things confidential, wanting to make sure we have all of our programs and our policies buttoned up before we go broad and share with the team. So I would let you know my experience at Atlassian is kind of turned upside down some of the ways I've thought about how open we should be from an HR department perspective. And it's taken me out of my comfort zone in a really good way. So one recent example that we've embraced here at Atlassian, again, really honing in on that open culture, is with this pandemic and with us just overnight shifting to full-time remote. We took this as an opportunity to really think about the future of work at Atlassian. What does that mean to us? What is this? Is this something that's just a moment in time where we're working remotely? Or is this something we can really capitalize on and recognize that as we are in this remote first environment, this digital first experience, that we can really expand our talent landscape. We can create even more inclusive experiences and access to our organization. And so our founders, our co-CEOs, took a big moonshot, if you will, to kind of pull some language from Jack's presentation and decided we're going with Team Anywhere. Now, when we think about Team Anywhere, that can be really complicated. We have to think about taxes. What does that mean for us? We have to think about, do we have legal entities in any location? And we didn't have all of this figured. However, our leaders felt like it's important as we embrace our values of open company, one of the values, that we share this broadly with all 6,000 Atlassians. And we shared this out well before we had it figured out, well before we had a clear definition around where we are going to be opening new entities, where people will be allowed to work, what will our compensation practices be if someone moves from a high cost area like San Francisco to a more affordable region, let's say for Michigan, for example. But we didn't want to hold back. And the reason for that, a few things. One, we understand people had big things that they were facing. They needed to make major decisions, thinking about school, going back, if their kids were going to be remote or if there was other options for them. Also recognizing that there was a lot of uncertainty with this pandemic. And this was enabling, at least for us to be open, that giving some sense of what the future is going to look like for us so they can start making decisions. Also, embracing this open component, we realize we want to get those ideas, like we said, ideas from anywhere, from everyone, to help build this future of work together. So we went ahead well in advance, back in, I believe it was July, end of June timeframe, and shared with all of Atlassian that this was going to be the future of work, our new policy of really embracing Team Anywhere. Again, without all of the knowledge, without knowing what the policy is going to be, but we wanted to share it so they can help us build it together. We've made big strides. We've had each of our business leaders and their groups work together to understand practices, rituals, the ways in which we'll be working, thinking about time overlap, what's getting in the way, like Zoom fatigue. So we really have opened it up both through pulsing surveys, through small working teams, through our Confluence pages, which I'll share more about our technology later. But I share that with you as an example of like, wow, how unnerving is it to be so open without all the answers? What I can tell you is we're building and we're getting the answers from our broader team, which is pretty exciting and something that I've never seen at any other organization, in full transparency. If you guys have questions about that, I'd be happy to share more later. All right, so when we think about open work, we think about it in 3 big ways, and we add one additional here at Atlassian. So we think about open ways of working, and that's really access to content. We want to remove barriers to information. We also think about open ways of thinking. So this is those areas where we think about free-flowing debate, opening up conversations, increasing ideas, which helps to bring more innovation. We also think about open ways of being. So this for me is one of my favorite pillars. I talk about liking to have fun at work. Well, I think one way that you can have fun at work is by being yourself. And that's what we believe in, is bringing your whole self to work, enabling you to discuss the elements about you that you're interested in. It could be that you're a foodie. It could be that you're a gamer. It could be that you're really passionate about social justice. We encourage you to bring it all in. We don't require you to bring it all in, but we do create a space where you can feel comfortable sharing that with your teammates. And we believe when you bring that to the table, it enables even more creativity and innovation to happen. Recent Harvard Business Review article talks about the benefits of being open and authentic with teams and enabling them to be themselves. When people communicate their true identities, they tend to elicit more positive reactions from others, are more liked and trusted, and have more opportunities for support from their coworkers. Think about that, just support from your coworkers in this real uncertain time when many of you and many of your teams and employees are having to work remotely. They've never done it before in many cases. They have kids at home. They're trying to juggle how to get them online for their Zoom classes. Think about how important it is for you to be able to be open that, yeah, today's been tough. And I'm struggling with how to keep my child interactive, engaged with their Zoom class. Think about how you could create space for your coworkers to share together, to think about even how to improve that and create a better space for this new way of being and working. The last pillar that is, I would say, also fairly unique here to Atlassian, which is pretty awesome, is how we open up our business model. We believe that this is a major differentiator for Atlassian, and it really is. We open up our products, our pricing is not hidden. We create and we share all of our practices and ways in which you can bring open work to your company. We don't require you to actually be a customer. It's just out there, open source. We also have a community where everyone can come together and talk, and from customers that are out there and share what's working for them to where they can bring best practices and ideas together with our Atlassian team. So we're not asking teams to achieve working openly. We're just saying, let's start to bring down the barriers. Bring down the barriers between people and the work that they need to do. Opens a vehicle to get to the final destination. It isn't the destination itself. And it's not a one-size-fits-all mandate. We understand there's different industries, there's different cultures and team practices. In some cases, you can't be too transparent. We understand you have to be responsible with your information. We do recognize that these are levers you can pull up and down depending upon your company culture. So I did want to just double click a little bit here onto this shared understanding and thinking. And so some of the ways we bring this together is really through collaboration tools. We leverage all of our tools here at Atlassian. And when we think about open working, we do think about how do you collaborate, not just in a conference room or a boardroom. We think about using technology as a platform for forums. You can think about things, not just Atlassian products, but think about Microsoft Office, Microsoft Teams. Jack mentioned that's a tool that his team uses. Google has many great collaboration tools. We have collaboration tools like our Confluence and Jira, as well as Trello, which enable people to put their work out there early, create space for dialogue, bringing challenges and sparring from their teammates to be able to have the best product at the end. So we do encourage people to put their work out there through these collaborative platforms earlier, before it's that finished product, to be able to get really great feedback from the group. So encourage you, technology is such an opportunity as you think about this new world that we're working in and how you can help bring even more openness to your work. So when you think about open, what we're really wanting to look at is what are the outcomes and what it leads to. So what are some of the indicators to know that you're on the right track if you decide you want to start embracing more of an open workplace? Open means to that vision that we want all of our teams. It's a vehicle to get more belonging, connection, trust, and speed. So we think about belonging, knowing you play a valued role in the community you identify with. Connection, shared understanding of goals and plans and practices. Momentum, so making that progress, reaching those moonshots, having really deep trust, inviting creativity and resiliency, and then really speed. So we're working in lockstep together. We know the information, we're aligned, helping to reduce friction. So I'm moving quite fast because I have a short amount of time to get through this content. So I'm going to shift now away from open and start talking a little bit more about practical. So how can we think about this open concept and then actually bring it to life in your work, in your workplace with your teams? So over the last couple of years, Atlassian research has done a lot of research on teams, including our own, to understand how the best teams work together and where there needs to be improvement. Often we'll ask what makes a successful team. So we're going to explore that a little bit further. We did conduct a study with Kantar Millward Brown. And within that study, we surveyed over 1,100 people across many teams and industries. One of the big questions we asked is, do you believe you are on the same page as your teammates about the role your team plays within the company? And what we found is only 30% of team members answered that they are on the same page about the role that their work plays in their company. So think about that, only 30%. So that's 1 out of every 3 of your teammates not understanding the context of their work or how it connects to their business. That seems like a big loss when you think about what are they working on? What are they focused on? How do they know that they're moving in the right direction? Another question that we asked tied to when you were on your last high-performing team, how many of your teammates do you think demonstrated respect for each other? I think about respect is also tied really closely to trust, right? And what we found was in those high-performing teams, 72% answered that they saw high levels of respect and trust among their teammates, where in contrast, on these lower performing teams, only 29%. So it is really impactful when you think about having a group come together and really create and achieve great things, but they are having really rooted in trust and respect amongst teammates. Now, I'd ask you to think back about one of the most successful teams that you've been a part of. And if you can think about that, if you guys could just use the chat again here, just to kind of keep it interactive, what comes to mind about those most successful teams? What did they feel like? What were the outcomes? Anything that you guys want to share would be great. It's a little quiet out there. So if you think about the most successful teams you've been a part of, okay, we have positive and fun. Oh, appreciation. I like that. Felt autonomous. Absolutely. Communicated with each other often. Encouraging. Fun. Yes. I bet you guys achieved some great outcomes as well. And it didn't even feel like work while you were going to achieve those outcomes. Joy and laughter. Absolutely. And that's what we're aiming for. So they were collaborative and so open with each other, fun, like-minded people. I love this. They kicked booty on our projects. They were friends, not just coworkers. Again, getting back to that sense of belonging, that purpose. Absolutely. Thank you again for sharing. So yeah, these are things when you think about it as leaders, we actually have the power to impact. How amazing is that? We can actually be a part of creating these great experiences. But what gets in the way? What gets in the way of this? What gets in the way is oftentimes we feel like, well, we're too busy. We have to get stuff done. We don't have time to create a sense of belonging. It takes too much time. We have priorities. All right, well, let's think past that. How can we help you unlock this? So what we would like to focus on here is how to create change through team exercises. So when you think about, imagine you're getting ready to run. I myself am not a big runner, but I have taken on a half marathon or two in my life, and I had to start somewhere. So first it started with just a short run and walk, and then I continued to build up, right? So you have to build the muscles through exercises. So when we think about our teams, we think about it as another way you can exercise and build muscles with your team. And in order to do that, what we've done is created an open playbook that is accessible to anyone, whether you're a customer of Atlassian or not. And so with this team playbook, really want to help you think about how teams can work differently, especially as you're navigating this new world, being fully remote, helping to increase trust, helping to increase speed. And we've done it through the Atlassian playbook. You can actually access this on our website. What's there for you? Well, each of these plays, it really gives you as a leader or as a manager, all of the work that you need. We've done it all for you. So there's prep work. We help you learn how to run and facilitate the play. You leave with the plan with the team. And it runs a gamut of different areas. So when you think about these plays or practices, if you will, or team interventions, whichever language you may want to use, we look at how you can strengthen different areas. So it can be from decision-making to increasing trust, to thinking about how you can lead a more disruptive brainstorming process, just to even getting to know your teams. So it goes from the individual to the team to even organizational level types of plays. You can filter by the topics that you're most interested in. And then we have templates that are available for you. Now, this template is a Confluence document, which is the collaborative document that you might be accustomed to if you've used Microsoft Office 360, or if you've used Google, where you can collaborate in a real time. Confluence is similar, but it's also very similar to like a Wikipedia, where you can go back and reference the information over time. So we've created these templates for you. You can use our product, but you also we've put them together for you in PDF version, because we want to make sure this is open content. We want to help every team, even if you're not our customer. I'm going to cruise here really quickly because I think we're getting tight on time. So just wanted to share a few that we've focused on even more particularly since we've been in this new world of working remote. And I would highlight my user manual, which is a great way for your team to get to know each other. And you may have thought you knew each other and you knew how you work together, but now you have to kind of think about it differently. Things have shifted. People are working remote. They have their kids at home. They have many different things that they're trying to navigate. So it's a good opportunity to kind of start from scratch and create new norms and practices. And this is a great way to do it. We also have this work-life impact where you can really find out what's getting in the way, what are the barriers the team's facing, and create a space where people can be really open and talk about it together. So you can build plans to make things improved for the future. And then a real simple one that we really encourage teams to just start with, which is a retrospective. And thanks, Elena. I will definitely show you how to get to this all of the playbook near the end of the presentation here. So a retro is it's just like it says, you are thinking back, how did that project go? So you can do it with sticky notes. You could also do it with some of our tools like Confluence and Trello. All of these are here. Again, all of the tools you need are available, and I will share how to get there after the presentation. We encourage you to make it your own, strive for variations. You have the power, right, to unleash the potential within your teams, to start creating a bigger sense of belonging and trust. And we do believe that these are some great tools to help get you there. So we encourage you to try at least just one play. It might not be the perfect one for you, so toss it out, try another one. All right, really quickly here, just a little on our technology, since which we did share early on, is that technology is also an important part of how we think about collaboration, especially as we're in this more digital first environment. And what I'd like to share is we have a number of different solutions. Since we focus primarily on Collaborate, these are some of our tools. So Confluence, Trello, and Jira. When we think about Trello, Trello is, what is it? It's an interactive team board. Think about a virtual corkboard with Post-it notes where teams can brainstorm. You can use it for project management. You can use it to help support onboarding, even your own personal to-do list. Templates are available, so you don't have to start from scratch. And also we do enable all of our customers or potential customers to access our products on their own, just as an exploratory process without any commitment. So it's something you may want to, if you're interested, start to check out. And then Confluence is really about information sharing and collaboration at scale. It becomes your company's source of truth. It helps to move work forward and inspires conversation. We use Confluence every day at Atlassian. It's where blogs are shared at a company level so that all of our teammates can stay on point with what's happening. It's also where we have our project plans and updates. It's also where we might talk about our quarterly business reviews, and even externally with our board, we use Confluence. It's a tool that anyone, hundreds, thousands of employees can collaborate on real time together. And also it keeps that record and that source of truth. So it's really part of our DNA here, and it does help us to think about working more asynchronistically so that you're working and flexing between written form and those group in-person discussions. So it enables you to start sparring, if you will, creating better ideas together before you even get in a room together. So do encourage you, whether it's using Confluence or other tools that are out there and available that you may already have in your company when you think about collaboration. All right, so that was fast. But I want to just wrap up with what we talked about. We talked about mindset, so really grounding yourselves in that open work and it just taking some small steps to get there. We talked a bit about team and thinking about how you can start to create more open, start to create more collaboration by using some of our Atlassian plays and leveraging that playbook. And then we also talked about some of our technology and encourage you to see what kind of technology you have in your own organization, because I'm sure you already have some great things available. And it looks like I'm getting a note. Dawn, you still have time if you want to navigate to the link live. Okay, I can do that. Sorry, I thought I was running out of time, so I was speeding through. Just need a moment.
We had a little time, Dawn. We still got about 8 minutes or so. So if you want to go back to the link so that everyone can kind of get a view of that web page. I know you walked me through it. And while Dawn's looking for that, I did want to mention that before her conversation here with the group, she introduced me to Trello. And I have to say, for those of you that are working in a digital first environment and are having difficulty transitioning because you're a tactile person that usually likes to have different notebooks for different projects, or you like to have visual aids to help you connect the dots, this was beautiful for me because it's very much more the theory of having, things written down in sticky notes that you can move around and organize as you work through projects. And so I would say that even if you don't use it for your professional life, if you want to organize like a holiday cookie contest with your family, if you wanted to organize, how you're going to organize your home, or things you'd like to do with your home, any sort of project, that software is really fun. And you just sign up via email. It doesn't even have to be an organizational account to kind of play around with it. And I thought it was amazing. I see somebody else on the call here. Elena said that she's been using Trello as well. She has 20 boards, she said, and it is pretty cool. So, and it looks like there's a couple other users that are using Trello, which is pretty interesting. So wanted to buy Dawn a little time to get through to the website where she can show you guys how to see these individual plays. The plays are also awesome because if you're a leader in your organization, which I'm guessing many of you are, this is a great way to start conversations, that are around collaboration and like creating that open space for either dialogue or project management, whatever it may be. So Dawn, it looks like you're there. I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, I started Zooming. For some reason, I thought I was tight on time here. Appreciate you letting me know. We still had a little space. So I've just moved over to Atlassian Team Playbook, and we'll make sure that this information is shared post-presentation. But really, this is the homepage here. So when you think about the plays, find the right place for your teams. There are all these different plays here. So we have one that's highlighted, Embracing Remote Teamwork. And so these are some that you can run. So one that I think is pretty exciting is I mentioned the user manual. There's also another one here, which is a team health monitor. This might be a good one to consider, especially as we've now been, almost probably coming up, 8-9 months here, flipping to this new remote world where you may even have some frontline workers that are having to still show up to the office because of the fact that they're on the front lines. So you may think about like banking, for instance, where you have your tellers that are on the front lines, and then you have your marketing folks and finance team that are working from home, which could be creating some trust issues. So this is an opportunity, whether you're in that kind of circumstance or everyone's remote. We don't have those same water cooler chats. We don't get to have coffee together as easily. You have to schedule coffee. So thinking about a health monitor might be a nice way to do just a quick pulse with your team. And what does that mean? So this health monitor is really a team's chance to take a look really in the mirror. What's going well? What are the areas for improvement? And so when you go through this, there's a video here. I'm not going to take you through the video, but it shows you just kind of a quick setup. And then it helps you walk right through it. So you just click on the start. Oh, this is the actual question. Sorry. Just go back here. So this gives you a kind of a little bit of an overview. And here you go. You can see tips for facilitating a health monitor. So this gets you some of the context. Here's what you need to do in order to run the health monitor. And then this gets into some of the next steps. While you're within here, there's different tools and templates that you can also use to help you navigate. Similar, I'm just going to kind of move away here, go back to, let's say you don't want to focus as much on the team. You want to think more about debriefing. So there's retrospectives, which I mentioned. So this is where you get into how did a project go? And this just really kind of sets it up for you. You can jump to the instructions. It tells you need 5 minutes of prep. It's going to take you about 60 minutes to run through the play. And it's typically intended for 2 to 8 people, give or take. And you kind of go through, what did you love about the project? What did you loathe about the project? What did you learn? And what had you longed for? And you can do this by using our tools. You can use a Zoom event. You can also use, this is a Trello board here, where you can have different cards where people can be putting in their information and brainstorming. And then you can also just use a basic whiteboard, if you will, with Post-it notes. And this is a way to start collecting feedback from the team about the project that they just went through, and then taking those opportunities to inform your next project. So as you can see here, this tells you what you need to facilitate, whether you're remote or in person. And then here's the optional templates that are available. Even some of these templates like Miro, this is not an Atlassian template, nor is Retrium. So we do encourage, of course, we'd love for you to use our templates and tools, but at the same time, we recognize for us, it's not about just becoming an Atlassian customer. We truly do believe in that unlocking the potential of the teams. And we want you to be able to do it, whether it's with our tools or others, or even just going that old school route with sticky notes, markers, and a whiteboard. So hopefully that gave you a little bit more information about the different plays that are here. Again, there's just a ton. I think it's really cool. I've started to use them with my team directly. Also, all of our teams within Atlassian do, when we're having a problem or a challenge, we're like, hold on, let's dust off the playbook. Let's bring that back out and think about how we can leverage our own tools that we share to make sure that we're staying steeped in this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, if that's all right. Awesome. Thank you. And I think I'm just going to hand it back over to you, Amy.
Great. Thanks, Dawn. You did a tremendous job, both you and Jack. Great content. And I think some of the specificity that you just brought to where somebody can find a couple ways to play around with these ideas and theories, and some free tools are great. I did want to mention that Jack's team has offered also for me to follow up as well as the Leadership Macomb team with an email that has a link to their white paper on the future of work, the research they've done behind it. And it takes some of those PowerPoint slides and kind of the steps of human agility, and it kind of outlines them in a white paper that will be shared with everyone on the call today. And then I will also pull together with the Leadership Macomb team the links that Dawn has shared and make sure that everyone has access to go play around with the plays that she shared, as well as can find Trello and the other products that she talked about on the call as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Leadership Macomb so that we can get the Q&A started.
All right, perfect. So I just wanted to introduce myself. My name's Julie Peckhoff, and I'm the program manager for Leadership Macomb. And then also behind the scenes, I've had Isabella Crook. She's our PR coordinator, and she's been helping too with facilitating the questions. So we appreciate Jack and Dawn and their presentations. We appreciate Miss Amy and getting them here on this session. It feels like it was really good, and you guys had a few questions that I would like to start with Jack, if I can. So do you see people leaving organizations because their company does not make virtual collaboration a priority, Jack?
Absolutely. There's no question. One of the things that we, so I'm an operations guy. I have a couple thousand customers across the northern part of the United States and in Canada. One of the things we told our clients, where we had our own employees and they had thousands of employees from other companies, is we said, if you don't start coming to the party with a way to not add stress to people's life by offering flexible work schedules, a technology platform that will aid them to do their work, the ability to care for a loved one without, dinging them on their attendance, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all those types of things. We said people will be voting with their feet. As soon as they feel a little bit more comfortable, they will vote with their feet. And we have seen that as we started, I don't want to suggest that we're out of anything, but as we got late second quarter, early third quarter, we saw huge attrition at the companies where we were warning them, what they needed to do and didn't do it. And we saw steadied attrition at the companies that changed and had an easier time. We've had an easier time, when we can see it through our metrics, getting people onboarded to those companies. So short answer, absolutely.
Great, thank you, Jack. I did have one more question for you. Do you have any examples of organizations that have used purpose well as a strategy in lieu of COVID-19?
Used purpose well. So I think when you look at, so I'll give a Detroit example. When you look at our two big mortgage companies here, so you got Quicken Loans downtown and you got United Shore out here, they start from day one. And when I say day one, talking to prospective talent, they talk about purpose right from day one. They never stop. If you sat in one of their internal meetings, they lead with purpose, they have purpose in the middle, they finish with purpose. And it is truly ingrained in their leadership staff, and it just permeates all the way down through their, their mid-level managers, down to their supervisors, down to the front lines. And that model, and when you look at their statistics, they did amazingly well through the pandemic because they had all the foundational stuff that was authentic and intrinsic in their organization.
That's good. Just to add to that, one of our participants said that she's heard Quicken Loans has you create a vision board on day one. So that's ties into perfectly what you just said, Jack. All right. And then I do have a couple questions here for Miss Dawn. A lot of people said that they were using Trello already. So that's great. And they wanted to, that's part of the reason why they wanted to come on here and see what else you guys had to say about that. So thank you very much again for being here. So do you think COVID has increased the demands for let me start over, Dawn, I'm sorry. Do you think COVID has increased the demand from employees for knowing what is next or helping behind closed doors?
Yeah, well, I can only speak to what I've experienced here at Atlassian. I don't want to claim to be an expert outside, but I will say absolutely. I think for whether it be at the leadership level or even at a manager level, like what we're finding is we as managers, I have a small team I'm managing, and we're needing to be constantly in communication, making sure that we're being really open with what we do know, also open with what we don't know. And we started that really early on. Especially with COVID. We started as soon as we moved to this environment. We did create really a Confluence forum, if you will, which gets back to one of those other tools we have, which is around information sharing. It's also interactive, so you can have comments on the page, similar to like what you might see maybe on a Facebook post, if you will. And that was our forum around COVID, where we didn't have all the answers. We didn't know how long our offices would be closed for. We needed some offices closed like in Japan much sooner than some of our other offices within the US or over in Sydney. And so what we acknowledged is what we do know and also what we don't know, and then encouraged questions to come through, both leveraging our Confluence forum. And then we also created more of we leveraged our Jira product, which is more of like a ticketing project management tool, but we found we could also use it to crowdsource and gather information. So we were answering the right questions. And we have our weekly town hall forums. And right at the onset of COVID, we extended those to an hour every week with our founders and others across the company. And we focused at least 30 minutes dedicated to answer questions coming in about what's happening with COVID. How are we helping our employees? We've changed many of our practices, creating increased time off, not just to support themselves if they become sick, but also family members, also recognizing there's childcare issues that are present. So we've enabled this like really continued crowdsourcing to help us know what's on our team's minds and help keep the information flowing. And it's even informing our practices, our policies and programs ongoing. We've also recognized that right now for everyone, we've been running pulsing surveys on burnout and stress. And we're finding actually within Atlassian, we're seeing pretty high levels of burnout, specifically even more pronounced in the US. And much of that is tied not just to what's happening within the workplace. We're pulsing to see what it is that's causing their factors of burnout. And it's tied to what was going on with our elections, what was going on with social unrest, as well as with COVID. And, you know, obviously in the United States, not to be US centric, we've just had a bit more happening in comparison to some of our other counterparts like Sydney, where they have a really good handle on or much better handle, I would say, population wise, at least in terms of COVID and the outbreak there. So it helps us to know like what we need to do differently across different regions, as well as what's on people's minds, and keeping this consistent dialogue open. So they're expecting it, they demand it. We're already quite open, right? So, so for us, it's like we couldn't hide. We had to just be even more proactive and more open. And I think it's really helped to create a great sense of goodwill. Even in this recent survey that we've just done, a broader engagement survey, we're finding that yes, people are feeling quite stressed and on the verge of, in some instances, burnout. They're also feeling extremely cared about by the company, extremely cared about by their manager, and a lot of feedback about the positivity around just like how we've just been and continue to embrace this open culture. And enable people to ask questions and feel like they're supported, and that we're doing our best as we can and iterating. Jack mentioned being agile. This is really jump-started how quickly you have to make decisions and iterate. Hopefully that answers that one for you.
It does. Kind of like one follow-up to that, just with the age groups. What do you guys suggest for that, especially with most people being remote now? How would you guys handle, I guess both of you can take a turn on that and in your organizations and that part of it and piecing that together?
When you say,
if you have like an older age group versus, like a millennial, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, well, one for us, I will say, transitioning to this full remote work was almost seamless in many ways. Our company is already quite distributed, and we truly do work globally. So I could be working with my team in Sydney or my team in Amsterdam on any given day, before going to full-time remote, or now that I'm in full-time remote. So we were already using tools like Zoom. Most of my meetings, even when I was in the office, we were using Zoom for those that were not in the same shared space as us. We were using things like Slack as increasing opportunities for chatting and quick conversation. I barely check my email, unfortunately. I definitely am plugged into Slack every day. That was an adjustment for me. I came to this organization not using our tools, not using Slack, not using Macs. Instead, I was a PC girl. And so I had to adjust and learn. And so what we have for individuals, regardless of demographics, we do have different forums that are available for them to join, trainings that are available to get accustomed. And then really it's about equipping our managers to know how to have those conversations. So we think about manager enablement, how to open up the dialogue, find out what's working for some, what isn't working. I think our biggest challenge is less around adopting technology and working remote. It's more around keeping that sense of belonging, which has been a huge part of our culture. And so we've had to get really creative and really pushing like these Slack channels, having special ones that are just for social interactions, sharing pictures. We now have a bunch of new puppy parents, so we're all sharing our pictures of our puppies. Whatever it might be, finding unique ways to keep the teams connected, and being, you have to be really intentional about it. I'll hand it over to Jack because he may have a bit more to consider.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. Yeah, we certainly bumped our heads several more times than you guys did. I would tell you that, so for those of you that don't know Kelly well, we're a very conservative company, been around 76 years. Change doesn't happen easily within Kelly. But I can tell you that rapidly in my time at Kelly, what I've seen has been nothing short of amazing compared to the first 70 years of the company. We looked very prescient when the pandemic hit. In February of 2019, we essentially transformed or blew up our branch network, which was heavily reliant on brick and mortar, distributed across the United States, people working in essentially pods together and not having a ton of interaction with other pods. Cooperation, collaboration amongst that network was not at anywhere near a good place. So as we went through that, I ended up running a market, and to get people to work across geographies started becoming the normal for us. So that worked well as we were morphing into that. In order to do that, you had to have the technology infrastructure to do that. So that got put in place. We did that through 2019, came out of the gates really strong in 2020, and then all of a sudden, boom, we closed all of our offices and we went home. What that taught us is we had the infrastructure, we had, maybe a second grade education, how to work across geographic lines. What we didn't know how to do very well, that Dawn said her company does know or did know how to do well back then. I couldn't spell Zoom back then. I traveled everywhere to go see clients. We had conference 1-800 conference call numbers is how we talked to each other across the United States back then. So as we started, we closed the offices March 16th. We really kind of fumbled around a little bit at a time when our clients really needed us. So we had to learn really fast how to do that. Our frontline came around really, really quick. I think because by and large, they're quite a bit younger than the rest of us. So they already had that sense of how to do things. They taught some of us. We did a lot of, I think, Dawn, you said something about scheduling coffee. There was lunch with Jack, dinner with Jack, breakfast with Jack, all that kind of stuff to get people to use the tools. And I think that tremendously helped us. And when you fast forwarded just about 120 days from March 16th, our metrics all returned to normal. Our efficiencies returned to normal. We got face-to-face salespeople to have meetings with Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So what we were moving toward, we just absolutely had to race toward because the bridge behind us was gone and we couldn't go back. So we're definitely better for that portion of the crisis that we've been through. And I can tell you, I won't travel as much as I used to. Clients have now figured it out. It's more efficient for clients to talk to you. The scheduling, I mean, it's just all that stuff is so much easier, and you can do, 5 things where before you could only get 1 done, on a particular travel day. So, and I know the question was about age. So I answered a little bit of it with age because I think our younger folks really helped the rest of us adopt and adapt. And what we saw at the very beginning, which was awesome. I know I heard somebody talking about a red sweater when I was talking earlier. I mean, the things that happen during these Zoom calls are absolutely hilarious, right? So we would see grandkids sitting on grandma's lap, helping grandma figure out how to log into one of our calls. So that was cool. And I'll leave it.
Perfect. Thank you both. I'm going to turn it over to Karen to kind of wrap us up. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Jack and Dawn. Great job. There's just so much information. It's kind of hard to digest it. There's so much to think about. I appreciate your great presentations and resources. We will be sending out a link with the resources you mentioned and a little survey for everyone to complete. It's just, it gives us so much to think about that, we always hear about all the I guess consequences of COVID as far as the work environment. And it's encouraging to see that it really seems like it's strengthening that employer-employee relationship and the peer-to-peer relationship. So maybe there's some silver lining